The morning sky burned gold above the Georgia hills, turning every dewdrop into fire. Isaiah Reed leaned against his old tractor, hat tipped low, the weight of another lonely season pressing against his shoulders. The soil beneath his boots was red and cracked, whispering the same truth every farmer knew. Land remembers who tends it and who forgets it. He hadn't forgotten. He just didn't know how to start over. A distant hum split the still air. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't the low growl of Romy's pickup. It was something heavier, sharper, vibrating through the bones of the earth. Isaiah squinted toward the horizon. The hum turned to a roar as the sky darkened for a moment, shadowed by something vast and gleaming. An alien shuttle, silver and seamless, descending like a promise nobody asked for. He cursed softly. Lord, what now? The shuttle landed right at the edge of his cornfield, crushing a month's worth of labor into dust. The air shimmered with heat and blue light. When the door opened, the scent of ozone drifted out, followed by silence. Then a figure. She stepped down slow, deliberate, her skin glowing faintly like moonlight caught in water. Isaiah Reed, came a calm voice, neither male nor female, through a translator band on her neck. I am Thalia Nye of the Veliari Union. I have been assigned to your property for agricultural integration study. Isaiah blinked. You what? Her head tilted slightly, expression unreadable. Your government accepted our exchange program. I am to assist you in cultivating local crops using Veliari methodology. He pushed his hat back, incredulous. They send in aliens to teach me how to farm now? Lord have mercy. Behind her, the shuttle sealed itself and lifted away, leaving a circle of scorched earth and two souls staring at one another. Thalia's gaze traveled slowly across the land, her eyes reflecting rows of withered corn. This environment appears inefficient, she said, yet there is an unusual vibrational harmony. It feels alive. Isaiah folded his arms. That's called soil, darling. You treat it right, it gives back. Treat it wrong, it'll choke you out. She didn't answer, only recorded his words on a floating pad. Her movements were graceful but detached, as if touch itself was foreign. He realized she hadn't breathed since stepping off the shuttle. Maybe she didn't need to. Come on, he muttered, heading toward the house. You'll be wanting something to eat. I do not consume, she replied, following. Her footsteps left faint blue traces that faded after seconds. Isaiah's farmhouse stood weathered but proud, its porch framed by hanging herbs and wind chimes made from old metal spoons. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and cedarwood. He poured himself a cup, offering one out of habit before realizing she just stared at it. You Veliari folks drink coffee? We absorb energy through light. Caffeine would destabilize. He chuckled. Figures. You don't eat, don't breathe, don't sweat, and you gon' tell me how to grow? I am here to learn, she said evenly. Veliari culture values understanding. Touch, however, is prohibited. Physical interaction causes emotional transference, an impurity. He raised an eyebrow. Impurity, huh? Well, down here we shake hands when we meet. I do not shake, she replied. Then you'll just have to watch me work. He stepped back onto the porch, coffee in hand, staring out at the field where her ship had scorched the earth. Part of him wanted to tell her to leave. But the farm needed funds, and this program came with government credits he couldn't refuse. As the sun climbed higher, Thalia followed him in silence, recording, analyzing, judging. Isaiah could feel her gaze on his back, like a question waiting for an answer. Somewhere deep down, he wondered if this strange partnership might heal more than the land itself. He turned slightly and said, You ever worked soil before? I have studied its composition, she replied. That ain't the same, he said quietly. Out here, you don't just study the land, you listen to it. Thalia paused, confusion flickering across her luminous eyes. You listen to dirt? He smiled faintly. You'll see. The sun burned hotter, the cicadas screamed, and a faint breeze whispered through the ruined corn. A new season was beginning, one neither of them could predict. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and follow Isaiah's journey. What's coming next might just change everything he thought he knew about the world and himself. The next morning broke with heavy mist crawling low over the fields, clinging to the corn like secrets the earth didn't want to let go. Isaiah woke before dawn, same as always, and found Thalia already outside, standing barefoot in the damp soil. Her skin shimmered faintly against the fog, each breath of wind leaving small trails of light that faded almost instantly. She was studying a single stalk of corn like it held the key to the universe. "You do that all night?" he asked, pulling on his boots. "I analyze the nutrient levels and moisture inconsistencies," she replied without turning. "This planet's soil is primitive, yet persistent." He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "We call that survival." "Ain't much that comes easy out here." Thalia glanced at him, expression still unreadable, her voice perfectly calm. "You appear to function without sleep. Is that part of your survival as well?" He poured himself a cup of strong coffee from the thermos. "That and caffeine." When he offered her a mug again, she hesitated. "You persist in offering sustenance I cannot consume." "Why?" "Because it's what decent folks do," Isaiah said. "We share what we got, even if it's just warmth." She blinked slowly, the translator device humming. "Warmth as currency?" He smiled faintly. "No, as kindness." The morning sun began breaking through the mist, painting the fields gold. Isaiah set out toward the far fence line with a bucket of feed. Thalia followed, her long steps graceful, almost soundless. When she spoke again, her tone carried quiet frustration. "Your systems lack efficiency. Your machines waste fuel. Even your irrigation leaks." "That's 'cause I fix what I can when I can," Isaiah said. "Out here we don't have fleets of fancy bots or alien tech, just hands." She watched him scatter feed to the chickens. "Your methods are chaotic," he smirked. "Maybe, but they work." When he turned, he caught her staring at his hands, rough, calloused, scarred from years of work. Her luminous eyes tracked every motion, like she was studying a creature she'd never seen before. "What are you looking at?" he asked. "The density of your skin," she said, "the way the pigment reflects sunlight. You are darker than most humans I have observed." Isaiah's tone stayed even, but his eyes hardened just a bit. "That a problem?" She seemed confused. "A problem? No. It's beautiful. Your skin carries history. My people do not vary. We are all one tone, one reflection." Her words disarmed him for a second. Then he laughed softly. "Guess that's one thing we got different." "My folks, our color tells a story, a whole lot of stories." Thalia tilted her head. "Then you are living art." Isaiah shook his head with a smile. "Never heard nobody call me that before." They walked the fence line in silence after that, the soft crunch of soil underfoot the only sound. A hawk cried overhead. Somewhere in the distance, Romy's truck rumbled past the road, honking twice in greeting. "You keep staring at everything," Isaiah said finally. "You take it all in like it's new." "It is," she admitted. "I was not prepared for how alive this place feels. It is loud, chaotic. It smells of water and growth and decay." He nodded. "That's the South for you." Nothing dies quiet down here. Later that afternoon, Isaiah cooked on the stove, a skillet of greens, cornbread, a piece of catfish from the freezer. The rich scent filled the house. Thalia stood at the doorway, arms folded, watching the steam curl through the air. "That aroma is dense," she said cautiously. "What function does this ritual serve?" "It ain't no ritual." "It's dinner," Isaiah said, setting a plate on the table. "We cook 'cause it keeps us together. We share 'cause it reminds us we belong." She didn't move closer, but watched him eat, fascinated by the act itself. "Your people attach meaning to nourishment." "That's 'cause food ain't just food," he replied, swallowing a bite. "It's memory. Every meal's a prayer." For a moment, something shifted in her expression, almost emotion, faint but real. "Memory as sustenance," she murmured. "Perhaps that is efficient after all." Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Isaiah leaned back in his chair, meeting her steady, glowing gaze. He could feel it again, that strange awareness between them, a pull he couldn't name. He broke the silence. "Tomorrow we start working for real. You ready to get your hands dirty?" Her eyes glowed a shade brighter. "I was not designed for dirt." He grinned. "Then it's time you learned." The mist had long lifted, but the air still carried its weight, thick with promise and unspoken curiosity. Somewhere deep in that silence, something had already begun to change. The Georgia sun had no mercy that week. Heat shimmered across the red dirt, and even the cicadas sounded tired. Isaiah worked shirtless in the field, sweat cutting trails down his dark skin. Thalia followed behind him, hovering near the rows, her glowing form casting strange, cool shadows over the crops. She wore thin protective layers, afraid of direct sunlight, but her eyes stayed fixed on Isaiah's movements, each dig, each lift, each quiet sigh. "You labor inefficiently," she said finally, watching him hoe the soil. "The mechanical unit you call a tiller would complete this in 1/3 the time." He didn't look up. "Machines don't listen to the ground like hands do. You can't rush roots. Roots are biological structures. They respond to nutrients, not sentiment." Isaiah straightened, wiping his brow with a rag. "You ever wonder why something grows better when it's tended by hand?" "That is coincidence," Thalia said. He smiled faintly. "Then maybe I live on coincidence." She studied him with a faint crease in her brow, a Veliari sign of curiosity. "Human stubbornness is statistically fascinating." He laughed quietly. "You call it stubbornness, I call it faith." Later that day, when he passed her a crate of seedlings, his hand brushed hers by accident. The contact was small, barely a second, but she flinched violently, her skin flashing brighter, breath catching in her throat. "Easy now," Isaiah said softly. "Ain't mean to startle you." Her voice trembled, mechanical yet trembling beneath the calm. "Do not touch me again. It is forbidden among my kind." He frowned. "You think I'd hurt you?" "Harm is not physical alone," she replied. "Touch transfers essence, emotion, thought. It disrupts clarity." Isaiah leaned on his shovel, watching her back away as if afraid of something invisible. "Maybe clarity's overrated," he said. "Sometimes you gotta feel a thing to understand it." She didn't answer. Her gaze darted to the soil, as if searching for logic in the ground itself. He sighed, turning back to work, his hands digging deep into the warm dirt. "You keep studying life from a distance, you'll miss what it feels like to live it." That evening, Mama Rosa came by carrying a basket of herbs, her grey hair wrapped tight in a blue scarf. The smell of mint and rosemary filled the porch as she set the basket down. "Lord Isaiah, that woman glows like a Christmas light," she whispered with a chuckle. "And she don't eat nothin'?" "Girl gon' dry up in this heat." Isaiah smiled wearily. "She says she don't need food. Says touch is forbidden too." Mama Rosa's eyes narrowed. Sounds like she's scared of her own heart." Thalia appeared at the door just then, hands folded neatly, posture flawless. "Your elder carries plant samples. May I analyze them?" Mama Rosa laughed. "You can analyze them all you want, baby. But these ain't just plants, these heal." "Heal?" Thalia repeated. Isaiah nodded toward the basket. "That's Mama Rosa's work. She been teaching folks how to treat hurt and sickness since I was little." Thalia knelt beside the basket, her glowing fingers hovering just above the leaves. Their energy vibrates differently. There is intention in them. "That's called love," Mama Rosa said, her voice gentle. "Every leaf I pick, I pray over it. You ever pray, child?" Thalia hesitated. "We do not pray. We calculate." Mama Rosa smiled. "Well, down here we do both. Keeps the spirit fed." Thalia looked up, her eyes glowing softer. "Spirit. You speak of unseen things as though they are tangible. That's 'cause they are," Isaiah said. "You just ain't learned how to see 'em yet." That night, Thalia sat alone on the porch, her translator quiet, her thoughts flickering across her features like light through water. She pressed her palm to the wooden railing, feeling the faint texture of time in it, the warmth, the memory, the echo of countless touches before hers. Isaiah watched from the doorway, arms crossed. "Ain't so bad, is it?" She didn't look at him. It is confusing. This place, these people. You live by emotion, not reason. Yet, something about it feels alive. Isaiah smiled softly, stepping out into the warm night. You'll get used to it, or maybe it'll get used to you. She looked up at the stars, their light reflecting in her eyes. Perhaps both. The crickets sang, the air thick with humidity and questions neither of them yet knew how to ask. By the time July rolled in, the heat had turned from heavy to cruel. The soil cracked like old leather, and even the stubborn stalks of corn bowed low, begging for rain that wouldn't come. Isaiah's well pump sputtered every other day, coughing up more sand than water. He worked longer hours, his shirt soaked through, his muscles tight from exhaustion and pride. Thalia followed him each morning, recording data through the glowing bands on her wrists. Her voice stayed calm, detached. Moisture level dropping by 4.6% each day. Yield probability is below sustainable threshold. Isaiah grunted. You mean the land's dying? You can say it plain. I am saying it plain, she replied. Your methods are insufficient. I could introduce a stabilizing micro-root system derived from Veliari biosoil technology. He wiped sweat from his brow. And I told you before, I ain't turning my land into a science project. Your resistance to innovation is irrational, she said sharply. You value this ground, yet you let it perish out of sentiment. Isaiah stopped, meeting her steady, glowing eyes. This ground's been in my family near 200 years. My granddaddy broke his back keeping it alive. My daddy too. You think I'm about to hand it over to machines and chemicals I can't even pronounce? Thalia's tone softened barely. Where I come from, we save what we value, regardless of tradition. He stared at her a long moment, then turned back to the fields. And where I come from, we fight for it. Even when it fights back. Later that afternoon, Romy pulled up in his dusty truck, boots hitting the ground with a thud. Man, you look like you wrestling the devil himself out here, he called, handing Isaiah a cold bottle of water. Heard the drought's killing your top field. Yeah, Isaiah muttered. Yeah. There ain't much left up there. Romy leaned against the truck, looking over at Thalia, who stood motionless, scanning the horizon with that distant alien calm. And how's Space Lady doing? Still talking in numbers? She's trying, Isaiah said, but she don't understand we ain't built like them. Romy smirked. Ain't that the truth? You ask me, that woman's staring at dirt like it's a math problem. She don't mean no harm, Isaiah replied, glancing toward her. She just ain't learned how to see yet. Romy nodded, lowering his voice. You still trust in that program? Government don't give nothing free, cousin. Aliens show up on black land, there's always a reason. Isaiah's jaw tightened. I need those credits, Romy. If I don't take 'em, I lose the farm, simple as that. Romy sighed, kicking the dust. Just don't let 'em take what makes this place yours. As the truck rolled away, a low rumble echoed from the distance. Thunder, faint and teasing. Isaiah looked up, hope flickering like a spark in dry wind. But the clouds passed without rain, leaving the smell of disappointment hanging heavy in the air. That night, Thalia approached him on the porch. Your exhaustion level is increasing, she said. You require rest. I'll rest when this land does, he said, staring into the horizon. She hesitated. You could accept my assistance. The Veliari soil enhancer could restore fertility within a cycle. I have access to the compound. I said no, he replied, sharper than he meant. Then he softened. This land's been nursed by hands, not machines. You can't just rewrite that. Thalia's glow dimmed slightly. Your pride prevents progress. And maybe your progress forgot pride, he shot back. Silence hung between them, thick as the summer air. The crickets sang, the old porch boards creaked beneath his boots. For the first time she looked uncertain, almost human. Finally, she said quietly, You fear losing control. Isaiah met her gaze. You got that right. Then let me learn, she whispered, so I can understand why you fight so hard for something that gives you pain. He didn't answer. But when he turned toward the darkened field, he realized she wasn't talking about the soil anymore. A warm wind stirred the air, carrying the faintest smell of coming rain, or maybe just hope, pretending to be rain. Isaiah stood there, caught between faith and failure, knowing the next storm would decide which one survived. The drought dragged on, but the sky finally softened one morning, clouds gathering thick and grey, carrying the weight of mercy. Isaiah leaned against the fence, watching the first drops fall onto thirsty ground. The air smelled alive again. He let the rain soak into his clothes, feeling it run down his face like forgiveness. Thalia stood a few yards away, gaze lifted toward the clouds. Tiny blue sparks flickered across her skin each time a raindrop hit her. "This sensation," she murmured. "It is chaotic, yet pleasant." Isaiah smiled faintly. "That's called relief." "Relief," she repeated, tasting the word. "It is an emotion tied to struggle." "That's right," he said. "Means something, only after you've earned it." They worked side by side through the soft rain, pulling dead stalks and clearing debris. For the first time, she didn't record data or analyze soil. She just moved with him, quiet, methodical, almost human in her rhythm. By afternoon, the clouds thinned, the sun broke through, and the field shimmered like wet copper. Isaiah sat on a crate near the barn, drinking water and catching his breath. Thalia approached, wiping moisture from her forehead, though she didn't need to. "You are fatigued," she said. He chuckled. "That's farming." "Hard work, little pay, big peace." She tilted her head. "Peace through exhaustion. Curious." He looked at her, then down at the dirt. "You ever had peace?" Her voice lowered. "My people are taught that emotion clouds purpose. Peace to us is silence." "Silence ain't peace," Isaiah said quietly. "Here's just what's left when you run out of words." For a while they just sat there, the hum of cicadas filling the space between them. The sound wasn't silence, it was life whispering. Thalia turned her gaze toward him. "You carry loss. I sense it in your tone. It resonates like a fracture." Isaiah stared at the horizon. "You're observant." "Who was she?" He hesitated. The question sat heavy in the humid air. "My wife," he said finally. "Her name was Lila. She passed 3 years ago. Cancer. Took her quick." Thalia's eyes dimmed slightly, her glow softening. "Veliari do not experience death as finality. Consciousness disperses into light, but for you it seems heavier." "It is," he said, "because you don't just lose the person, you lose the rhythm. The small things. The sound of their laugh when nothing's funny. The way they smell after rain." She studied him carefully. "You loved her deeply." "Still do," he said, voice rough. Something shifted in Thalia then. Her hand twitched slightly, almost like she wanted to reach for him but didn't know how. "How did she touch you?" she asked softly. Isaiah looked at her, startled by the question. "What do you mean?" "I have been studying your gestures," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Every interaction here is rooted in touch, hugs, handshakes, comfort, connection. My people, we are born without it. To touch is to merge, to lose the self. But you seem to find yourself in it." He exhaled slowly. "Touch is how we remind each other we're real. When Lila got sick, I'd hold her hand even when she couldn't talk. Didn't fix nothing, but it told her I was there." Thalia looked down at her own hands, pale light glowing faintly beneath her skin. "Perhaps I envy that." Isaiah's voice softened. "Don't envy pain, Thalia. It teaches, but it hurts." She looked up again. "Perhaps I envy that too." A single tear slipped down her cheek, if it could be called that. It glowed faintly like a drop of starlight before vanishing into her skin. Isaiah watched, uncertain whether to speak. Instead, he said gently, "You learning, girl. That's a start." For the first time, Thalia smiled, not perfectly, not fully, but enough to make Isaiah's chest tighten. "Then perhaps there is hope for me yet." "Plenty," he said, standing. "Now come on, rain's done. Time to feed the soil before the sun takes back what it gave." As they walked back into the fields, the air still damp and sweet, Isaiah noticed she didn't keep her distance this time. Her steps matched his, close enough that when their arms brushed, She didn't flinch. And though neither said a word about it, they both felt the same strange warmth, a fragile connection sprouting quietly beneath the surface, like something that had been waiting for rain all along. The morning after the rain smelled like renewal. The soil had turned soft again, rich with the promise of growth. Isaiah knelt by a row of empty beds, letting the dirt slide through his fingers. "Now this," he said quietly, "this is what we call good ground." Thalia stood nearby, watching him. Her bioluminescent glow was dim in the daylight, almost human now, though her posture remained too perfect, too deliberate. "You treat the soil as if it were alive," she said. "It is," Isaiah replied. "Every inch breathes if you listen." He glanced at her. "Come here. I'm going to show you how to plant the right way." She hesitated but obeyed, lowering herself beside him. He handed her a small seed, pale against her glowing palm. "That little thing right there got more power than most folks think. It just needs the right hands." Thalia turned the seed between her fingers. "It is fragile." "Fragile don't mean weak," Isaiah said. "It just means it needs care." He guided her hand toward the soil. "Don't drop it. Place it gentle, like you're introducing it to the earth, not throwing it at it." She mimicked his motion, pressing the seed lightly into the dirt. Her fingers trembled, uncertain. "It resists," she murmured. "Good," he said. "It means it's taken you serious." For a moment she looked at him, confusion and something else, curiosity, flickering in her expression. "You speak as if this process has emotion." He chuckled. "Everything's got emotion if you're close enough to feel it." They continued planting side by side, their movement slowly sinking. Sweat gathered at the base of Isaiah's neck, and the faint scent of earth mixed with the citrus oil Mama Rosa had given him for the heat. Thalia's skin caught the light, her glow pulsing faintly each time her hand touched the soil. At one point, Isaiah reached over to steady her hand, guiding her wrist when she pressed too hard. She didn't pull away. Instead, she froze, eyes wide, breath shallow. "You're touching me again," she whispered. "I know," he said calmly. "You can tell me to stop." She didn't. The tension in her arm softened. "It is not unpleasant," she said, voice low. "There is warmth." "That's what living feels like," he murmured, his hand still steadying hers. When he finally pulled away, she looked down at her palm, as if searching for proof of what she'd felt. "Does every human touch carry this kind of resonance?" "Depends who's doing the touching," Isaiah said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. She fell quiet after that, but her pace grew slower, more deliberate. He could tell she was no longer just learning to plant, she was learning to feel. By midday, the sun was fierce again. Isaiah leaned against the fence, watching the small line of seeds they'd buried. "We'll see in a few days if they take," he said. "But I got a good feeling." Thalia studied the freshly turned soil. "These seeds hold potential. I find it humbling." "Humbling's good for the soul," he said. "You speak of the soul often," she said softly. "We have no such term. Our essence is shared, communal. Yet, when I touched this ground, when I touched your hand—" She paused, frowning slightly. "It feels singular, private, my own." Isaiah turned to her. "That's because you're starting to find yourself." "Is that what it means to be human?" He thought for a long moment before answering. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just what it means to belong somewhere." She nodded slowly, looking down at her hands again. They were streaked with dirt, tiny bits of soil clinging to the glowing lines across her palms. She rubbed them together, fascinated. "It stains," she said softly. "But I do not wish to remove it." Isaiah smiled. "Welcome to farming." That evening she lingered outside long after sunset. Isaiah watched from the porch as she knelt in the soil, her fingers tracing the tiny mounds they'd built. The air buzzed with crickets, warm and alive. She touched a sprouting weed, brushing it carefully, then placed her hand flat against the earth. A faint shimmer passed through her, not light, but something deeper. A quiet pulse, a heartbeat learned, not born. From the doorway, Isaiah whispered to himself, Yeah, you're starting to listen. By late August, the drought had broken, but a new kind of storm began brewing, one made of whispers. The little town of Fairburn didn't like change, and word traveled fast that Isaiah Reed had an alien woman living on his farm. Folks stared longer in church, spoke softer when he walked into the supply store, and some didn't bother hiding their frowns at all. Isaiah felt it first at the farmer's market. He stood by his stall, selling okra and collards, when he caught a few neighbors looking past him. Thalia was by his truck, examining a crate of peaches with her usual intensity. Her luminous skin glowed faintly under the shade, and that was enough to draw every eye. "Didn't think you'd be bringing your science project into town," muttered one old man, tipping his hat halfway, but not in respect. Isaiah kept his tone steady. "She's helping me run the farm, that's all." The man smirked. "Sure she is." Thalia turned her head, reading the tension, but not the meaning. "Is there hostility?" she asked quietly when Isaiah joined her. He sighed. "There's suspicion. Folks here don't take kindly to what they don't understand." "Understanding requires exposure," she said simply. "Then they must learn." He gave a small laugh. "You can't teach some people what they don't want to know." Later that evening, when they returned to the farm, Romy's truck was already parked near the barn. He leaned against it, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "Evening, cousin," he said. "Heard you took our visitor into town." "Needed supplies," Isaiah replied. "Didn't see the harm." Romy scratched his beard. "No harm, maybe. But people talk, Zay. Ain't all of it friendly." "I figured," Isaiah said. "Ain't the first time this community had opinions about my choices." Romy gave a quiet chuckle. "True. But this time it ain't just about you. She's different. Makes folks uneasy." Thalia stepped forward, calm as ever. "Unease is an emotional defense. Perhaps they fear contamination." Romy blinked, surprised she'd spoken. "Contamination? Nah, it ain't that. It's just this town got old bones, doesn't like new blood." Isaiah looked tired. "You telling me something I don't know?" Romy's voice softened. "I'm telling you to be careful. You already carry more weight than most. Folks watching how you handle it." When he left, silence settled over the porch. Thalia stood by the railing, looking out at the darkening fields. Fireflies flickered across the grass like distant thoughts. "He believes I am a threat," she said quietly. "No," Isaiah said. "He's just protecting me the way folks do when they care. Romy's got a good heart, even when his words don't show it." She turned toward him, her expression faintly troubled. "Why must affection be hidden behind conflict?" "Because people get scared," he said. "And scared people talk mean." Thalia seemed to absorb that. "On Veliara, emotion is suppressed to prevent division. You humans embrace it, and it still divides you." He smiled faintly. "That's the beauty and the mess of it. We love loud and fight louder, but we always try again." She watched him for a long moment. "You are patient with me, even when I err." "'Cause you're trying," Isaiah said. "That's more than most." The wind picked up, rustling the leaves. Somewhere down the road a car passed, its headlights flashing briefly across the porch. Isaiah took a slow breath, the weight of the day sitting heavy on his chest. "Folks'll keep talking. Let 'em. They ain't the ones tending this land." Thalia tilted her head. "Does their judgment not wound you?" He looked out toward the dark horizon. "Maybe a little, but I stopped living for other people's comfort a long time ago." For a while, neither spoke. The crickets grew louder, and the smell of honeysuckle drifted through the night. Then softly Thalia said, "Your resilience confuses me. You carry pain and yet continue forward." "That's what we do," Isaiah said simply, "especially my people. We turn pain into work, work into pride." She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Then perhaps that is what it means to be strong." Isaiah met her eyes, seeing a faint glimmer of understanding there, a human light flickering inside alien calm. He gave a small smile. "You're learning faster than you think." And though the night around them felt heavy with judgment, somewhere in the quiet hum of the fields, something else began to grow, stubborn, defiant, and alive. The following week, the air turned crisp, signaling the slow approach of fall. The fields shimmered gold beneath the evening sun, and the world felt gentler for a while, until the day everything cracked. Isaiah had driven Thalia into town to pick up a new water regulator from the co-op. The clerk at the counter, a man named Darrell, had always been civil, but that day his voice carried an edge that sliced deep. "Didn't know the program was still sending those things down here," Darrell said, eyes fixed on Thalia. Isaiah's shoulders stiffened. "She's not a thing. She's my apprentice." Darrell smirked. "Apprentice, huh? Don't look like farming to me. Looks like something else." Isaiah's jaw clenched. "Watch yourself." But before he could say more, Thalia stepped forward. "I mean no harm." "I am learning human methods," Darrell laughed under his breath. "Ain't no human about you, sweetheart." The word hung sharp and wrong in the air. Thalia didn't understand it, not fully, but Isaiah did. He saw her glowing skin dim slightly, her gaze falling to the floor. He took the regulator, paid without another word, and led her out. The ride home was silent. The sound of gravel under the tires was louder than either of them could bear. Halfway down the road, Thalia finally spoke. "He saw me as less." Isaiah gripped the wheel tighter. "He's ignorant, that's all." His words carried disgust. "I have felt judgment before, but never like this." Her voice faltered for the first time. "Is this what you endure?" "For your skin?" Isaiah didn't answer right away. He looked out at the fields rolling past, the same soil that had known both pain and pride for generations. "Yeah," he said quietly. "Sometimes worse." She turned toward him, the glow in her eyes flickering. "Then why do you not strike back?" "Because some battles you don't fight with fists," he said. "You outlast them. You live so good they choke on their own hate." When they reached the farm, Thalia walked straight to the porch and sat down, her usual composure gone. Her hands trembled faintly, the light beneath her skin dimming like a candle in wind. "He looked at me as if I were not real," she said, "as if my existence offended him." Isaiah sat beside her, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "People fear what they can't understand. Don't make it right, but it's how it is." She stared at her hands. "I thought understanding could be achieved through knowledge, but it is something deeper, something crueler." "It is," Isaiah said softly. "That's the part no textbook can teach." For a long while they sat in silence. The sun sank lower, setting the fields ablaze with color. Then, without a word, Isaiah reached out, resting his hand over hers. She gasped, a sound soft and fragile, almost breaking on her breath. Her skin pulsed under his touch, light spreading like ripples in a pond. But this time, she didn't pull away. "No male has ever touched me this way," she whispered. Her voice trembled with something new, fear, wonder, maybe both. "Not in calm. Not in kindness." Isaiah's hand tightened gently around hers. "Ain't nothing to fear, just a hand, that's all." "To you, perhaps," she said, eyes wide. "To me it feels as though the air itself listens, as though the world moves through me." He smiled faintly. "That's what we call connection." She looked down, her other hand rising to rest over his. "Connection," she repeated, testing the weight of the word. "It is heavy, but it feels alive." The wind picked up, rustling the trees. Isaiah could see tears, tiny, luminous drops, forming in her eyes again. She didn't wipe them away. "Don't let that man's words stay in you," he said quietly. "You're more than what he saw. You're learning, growing. You belong right here." Thalia turned her face toward him, light flickering softly across her cheeks. "Here," she said, almost to herself. "It no longer feels foreign." They stayed that way for a long while, neither speaking, the only sound the hum of crickets and the low breath of the earth settling after sunset. And though the world beyond the farm still whispered its cruel stories, something inside Thalia shifted that night. A fragile thread of trust woven through the quiet between them, one that neither prejudice nor pain could unmake. The next Sunday dawned soft and golden, the kind of morning that made even the tired parts of Georgia look forgiving. Isaiah woke to the smell of sweetgrass drifting through the open window. From the kitchen came the sound of humming, low, steady, warm. Thalia was there, standing by the counter, mimicking the tune as best she could. "You hum now?" Isaiah asked, amused. Her glow brightened faintly. "It is soothing. I heard Mama Rosa do it yesterday while gathering herbs. The frequency eased my pulse." He chuckled. "We call that soul, Thalia." "Soul," she repeated, as if the word itself carried weight. "Is that why she placed her hand on my shoulder and called me child?" Isaiah smiled. "That's just her way. When Mama Rosa calls you child, it means she's adopted you into her prayers." Thalia paused, thoughtful. "Then I am blessed?" "Reckon so," Isaiah said. Later that morning, they rode into town together. Thalia wore a wide sun hat to dim her glow, though the faint shimmer still caught the light. Isaiah parked by the old white church, its bell tower crooked but proud. The air buzzed with gospel energy, voices rising before they even stepped through the doors. "Is this the gathering you call service?" Thalia asked. "More like a reunion," he said, smiling. "You'll see." Inside, warmth rolled through the air. Music, laughter, the scent of collard greens and fried chicken wafting from the kitchen in back. Isaiah greeted folks with nods and smiles, and though a few eyes lingered on Thalia, most people just whispered softly, curious but kind. Mama Rosa waved them over with a grin. "Well, look who showed up in the Lord's house," she said. "Isaiah, I was starting to think you forgot where we praise." Isaiah laughed. "Couldn't stay gone forever, Mama Rosa. Brought a guest too." Thalia bowed her head slightly. "It is an honor." Mama Rosa reached out, her old hand steady and sure. "Honor's mine, sugar." Thalia froze for a moment, but then allowed the touch. Her glow pulsed faintly under Mama Rosa's palm. Something passed between them, quiet, unseen, but real. "You feel that?" Mama Rosa asked softly. "I do not understand," Thalia said. "It is warmth without heat, weight without pressure." "That's the spirit, baby," Mama Rosa said, smiling. "It's how we hold each other up." During the service, the choir sang with thunder in their voices. Isaiah watched Thalia's face as the music filled the church. Her eyes glistened like wet glass. Her lips parted slightly as if she couldn't breathe for how much sound there was. "This is not sound," she whispered to Isaiah. "It is vibration that reaches within." "That's gospel," he said. "That's joy and pain singing in the same key." When the pastor spoke about endurance, about carrying burdens not meant for one pair of shoulders, Isaiah felt the familiar ache of old memories stirring. Lila's name floated somewhere in the rhythm of the words, unspoken but alive. He glanced at Thalia and found her watching him, eyes soft, understanding more than she could ever say. After the service, the congregation gathered outside for the meal. Children ran between tables, laughter filled the air. Thalia moved slowly among the people, observing, listening. When someone handed her a plate of cornbread, she didn't eat, but she held it carefully as if honoring the gesture. "This tradition," she said to Isaiah, "it nourishes more than the body." "Yeah," he said. "That's the point. Food brings us back to each other." Mama Rosa joined them, wiping her hands on her apron. "You see now why we cook, child. Every pot's a prayer. Every plate's a promise that we still hear." Thalia looked around at the people, singing, laughing, loving, and for the first time since she'd arrived, she smiled without hesitation. "Then humanity's strength," she said quietly, "is not its logic, it is this." Isaiah nodded. "You're catching on." The afternoon sun dipped low, painting the churchyard in gold. As they packed up to leave, a small girl ran up to Thalia and slipped a daisy into her hand. "You're pretty," the girl said before darting away. Thalia stared at the flower, then at Isaiah. She was not afraid. "Not everyone is," he said. "Give it time." As they drove back to the farm, Thalia held the daisy close, her light glowing faintly brighter. "Today," she said softly, "I felt what you call belonging." Isaiah smiled at the road ahead. That's the human way. September rolled in with a strange quiet. The crops were thriving again. green and proud. And for the first time in years, Isaiah's fields looked like promise instead of burden. Yet something in his gut felt off. The mail had come late that day, and when he opened the thick government envelope, the air seemed to tighten around him. Notice of intent to acquire, the letter read. The words were cold, final. A corporate entity, Heliox Agritech, planned to buy the surrounding land for development of interspecies agricultural research. Isaiah's farm was right in the middle of it. He read the letter twice before Thalia appeared at the door. "You are distressed," she said softly. "Your pulse has accelerated." Isaiah handed her the letter. "Read for yourself." Her glowing eyes scanned the page. "They seek to claim this land. Under Clause 17 of the Earth-Veliari Accord, they can argue ecological advancement." "Which means they can take it," Isaiah said flatly. Thalia looked up at him. "You are protected by property law. They cannot simply seize it." "Can't and won't ain't the same thing," he said. "These companies find ways, always have." She frowned, considering the text. "Heliox is partially Veliari-owned. I can contact their council liaison." "No," Isaiah cut in. "I don't need no alien committee telling me what to do with my granddaddy's soil." Thalia's expression didn't change, but her voice grew softer. "You would rather lose it?" Isaiah folded the paper, slipping it into his pocket. "I'd rather fight my own battles." That evening, he sat on the porch with Romy, the two men watching the sun bleed into the horizon. Romy took a long sip of sweet tea and sighed. "You knew it was coming one day. Land this rich? Somebody always wants a piece." Isaiah's jaw tightened. "I've been working this soil since I was old enough to walk." "Ain't no paper gonna tell me it don't belong to me." Romy nodded. "Then we fight smart. Call the local board, get a lawyer." Isaiah grunted. "Lawyers cost money I don't got." Romy leaned back. "Then maybe your glowing friend can help. Folks like her got pull." Isaiah's gaze hardened. "I ain't asking her to fix what man broke." "Maybe it ain't about asking," Romy said. "Maybe it's about letting her stand with you." When Romy left, the crickets filled the silence. Isaiah stared out at the fields, each row a lifetime of sweat and memory. He remembered his father's calloused hands guiding his small ones across the soil, his mother's laughter drifting through summer rain, Lila's voice singing soft under the stars. Everything that mattered was buried in that earth. Thalia joined him after a while, standing quietly beside the porch railing. Her glow was dimmer than usual. "You are angry," she said. "Yeah," Isaiah murmured. "At them, at the world, maybe at myself." "Why yourself?" "Because I should have seen it coming." She stepped closer. "Isaiah, I know the Heliox Council. Their actions violate several treaty ethics. I could appeal to their board. My testimony carries diplomatic weight." He looked at her, tired but firm. "And what'll that cost me, Thalia? My land? My pride? My right to handle my own?" Her voice was steady. "It would cost you nothing. It would preserve what you love." He shook his head. "You don't understand. When you grow up black in this country, you learn real quick. Ain't nobody handing you what you earned. You gotta hold it tight or they'll find a way to take it." Thalia studied him for a long moment. "Your history runs deep, like roots. You protect it as if it breathes." "It does," he said, "and I ain't letting some company choke it." A low rumble echoed in the distance. Thunder or machines, Isaiah couldn't tell. The air felt charged again, thick with more than weather. Thalia looked toward the horizon, her eyes narrowing. "They will not stop with a letter." He glanced at her. "Then neither will I." The porch light flickered between them, the night alive with tension and unspoken resolve. Somewhere out in the dark, the first sign of a coming storm began to move, not just in the sky but in the heart of everything Isaiah had built. The morning after the notice arrived, Isaiah woke before dawn, the sky still heavy with mist. The letter from Heliox sat folded on the table beside a cup of cold coffee. He hadn't slept. The thought of losing the land gnawed at him like hunger. Every furrow in that soil carried a story, his family's fingerprints pressed into history. He wasn't about to let it vanish into corporate dust. When Romy arrived, he found Isaiah in the barn, mending the tractor he couldn't afford to replace. "You look like hell, cousin," Romy said, stepping inside. Isaiah didn't look up. Ain't got time for mirrors. Romy sighed. I talked to a buddy down at the city office. Heliox already filed their acquisition intent with the regional board. You got 3 weeks to contest. 3 weeks, Isaiah muttered. Ain't much of a fight window. Maybe not, Romy said. But it's still a window. You just got to climb through it before they nail it shut. Thalia entered then, carrying a small tablet flickering with Veliari text. I confirmed Heliox's claim, she said. They are leveraging an ecological clause designed to bypass local ownership when a species exchange project is declared beneficial to both worlds. Isaiah's brow furrowed. In English, that means they can steal it if they call it progress. Yes, she said, but I also discovered a precedent, Section 42B of the Accord. If a Veliari citizen files a moral objection on behalf of an allied human entity, the claim must be reviewed before the interspecies tribunal. Romy let out a low whistle. Sounds fancy. That could actually slow 'em down. Isaiah gave her a wary look. And you just happen to know how to file one of them objections? Thalia nodded. I have the credentials. Then why you telling me like it's a choice, he asked. Because it is your land, she said simply. I cannot act without your consent. Isaiah rubbed his temples. This ain't how I wanted it, Thalia. I didn't invite you here to fight my fights. Her voice softened. But perhaps you invited me to learn why they matter. He stared at her a long moment, the air thick with unspoken truth. Finally he said, All right, file it, but we'll back it up with human law too. Romy, get me that lawyer's number. Over the next few days, the farm turned into a war room. Isaiah gathered every deed, record and photograph his family had ever kept. Mama Rosa came by with cornbread and advice, her voice steady as always. Don't let them folks trick you with their words, she said. Paper don't own legacy, people do. Thalia sat with Isaiah late into the nights, translating alien legal terms and mapping every clause. Though her tone stayed even, he could feel her passion in every word. They see this land as soil, she said once. So you see it as soul. That difference must be your argument. The hearing was held in Atlanta, inside a massive domed structure built for interspecies diplomacy. Isaiah had never felt so small. Dozens of beings, human and alien, filled the chamber. He stood beside Thalia, hands calloused, shoulders squared. She spoke first, her voice carrying through the translator like music turned to law. This land is not merely resource, she said. It sustains identity. To strip it away would erase a living history. On Veliara, such an act is called soul harvesting. We forbid it. I ask this tribunal to do the same. The room fell quiet. Isaiah's heart pounded. He didn't understand every word, but he felt the weight of her defense, clear, fierce, unshaken. When it was his turn, he stepped forward, hat in hand. My family been working that ground since before my granddaddy could spell his own name. We earned it with sweat, not signatures. You take it now. You don't just steal dirt. You steal every name that ever kept it alive. When the gavel fell, the room hummed with quiet debate. The decision would take days, maybe weeks. But for the first time since the letter came, Isaiah felt something new bloom in his chest. Hope, rough-edged but real. As they left the tribunal, Thalia turned to him. You spoke truth, she said. Even they felt it. He nodded. Guess we'll see if truth's enough. The evening air outside tasted like rain and rebellion, and Isaiah walked out into it knowing one thing for sure. He wasn't done fighting. Not by a long shot. The decision came 2 weeks later on a Tuesday morning. The envelope arrived just after sunrise, stamped with both human and Veliari insignias. Isaiah stood on the porch, letter in hand, heart pounding like thunder in his chest. He tore it open, scanning the words once, twice, barely breathing. He whispered it out loud, almost afraid to believe it. We won. Thalia stepped beside him, reading over his shoulder. The tribunal recognized ancestral stewardship as moral grounds for retention. The land remains yours. Isaiah laughed, raw and loud, the sound breaking through days of tension. We did it, he said, grabbing his hat and waving it toward the sky. We actually did it. Thalia's glow brightened, soft and steady. No, Isaiah, you did it. Your truth reached them. He shook his head. Couldn't have done it without you, Thalia. You spoke their language when mine couldn't. She paused, something like pride crossing her face. Perhaps, she said softly, but you spoke their hearts. By midday, word had spread through Fairburn. Romy showed up first, truck horn blaring, his grin wide enough to split his face. "Knew you'd pull it off, cousin," he shouted. "Ain't nobody taking Reedland while there's breath in our blood." Mama Rosa came next, carrying a basket of fresh bread and collards, her eyes glistening. "I told you, child," she said, hugging Isaiah tight. "Ain't no paper strong enough to uproot faith." Isaiah held her close. "Thank you, Mama, for everything." "And you," she said, turning to Thalia. "You got some power in you too." "The Lord uses many voices, baby, even the ones that shine." Thalia bowed her head. "Then perhaps today, I have been heard." By evening, the farm had turned into a gathering. Families from nearby towns arrived with food and music. Children ran barefoot through the grass, chasing fireflies. The smell of smoked meat and sweet corn filled the air. Laughter moved like wind through the crowd, and for the first time in years, Isaiah's land felt full again. Alive, sacred. Thalia moved among the people, her glow soft against the golden dusk. Women asked about her world. Children asked about her light. She answered each question patiently, even when she didn't fully understand the humor. At one point, Mama Rosa pulled her toward the center of the clearing where music had started, an old rhythm on drums and tambourine. "Come on, baby. Let that body breathe," she said. "I do not dance," Thalia replied carefully. Mama Rosa smiled. "Then you just sway, let the earth do the rest." Thalia hesitated but placed her feet on the warm soil, moving awkwardly at first. Then something shifted. Her body found the rhythm, her glow pulsing with each beat. The crowd clapped and laughed, welcoming her without hesitation. Isaiah stood at the edge, watching her with quiet wonder. The once stiff alien apprentice now spun in the soft light of lanterns, her movements free, unmeasured. When she noticed him watching, she slowed, walking toward him with a faint smile. "You are not dancing," she said. "I'm admiring," Isaiah replied. "Somebody's got to keep rhythm from the sidelines." She tilted her head. "That is not efficient." He laughed. "Ain't supposed to be." As night deepened, the stars stretched wide above them, and the music mellowed into slow hums of contentment. Thalia stood beside Isaiah, looking out at the fields glowing faintly under the moonlight. "This world," she said, voice soft, "it breathes differently tonight." "That's what victory feels like," Isaiah said, "like the land itself's exhaling." She looked at him then, eyes reflecting starlight. "I have learned much since I arrived, but tonight, I felt." He nodded. "That's what makes it real." They stood in silence, the sound of laughter floating around them like old hymns reborn. The firelight painted their faces in amber and gold. Thalia glanced at him again. "Isaiah, do you ever think your people tire of fighting for what should already be theirs?" He looked down at his hands, then back toward the field. "Every day," he said quietly. "But we keep on fighting anyway." That's what roots do, they hold. She reached out, brushing her fingers lightly against his arm, her touch steady, deliberate. "Then may I grow roots too?" He smiled, heart heavy and light all at once. "You already are, Thalia." "You already are." The drums faded into the hum of night, and the farm, his family's land, stood eternal beneath the stars, carrying new voices in its soil and new stories in its wind. Autumn settled over Georgia like a slow hymn, soft and amber. The days shortened, the air cooled, and Isaiah found himself lingering longer outside, watching the leaves turn and fall across the fields that were finally safe. The crops stood proud, rows of collards, sweet potatoes and corn stretching beneath a sky that seemed gentler now. Every breath he took carried a peace he hadn't felt in years. Thalia had changed too. She no longer moved like a visitor studying a foreign world. Her glow had softened into something human, warm instead of cold, quiet instead of distant. She still spoke carefully, every word chosen, but there was rhythm in her speech now, a cadence that carried traces of the South she'd grown to love. One evening Isaiah sat on the porch, guitar resting on his lap. His fingers plucked a slow, soulful melody, one his father used to hum after long harvest days. The tune drifted into the night air, mingling with the sound of frogs near the pond. Thalia stepped out from the house, drawn by the sound. "You create vibration intentionally," she said, voice soft with awe. "It makes the air feel alive." He smiled without looking up. "That's music, Thalia. It's how we talk when words ain't enough." She tilted her head. "Then what are you saying now?" He stopped playing, eyes meeting hers. "That I'm grateful." She moved closer, sitting beside him. The boards creaked under her light steps. "Gratitude. It is an exchange of warmth, yes?" "More like a confession," he said quietly. "For what you gave, what you stayed for." She looked down, her fingers brushing the porch rail. "On my world, we record success in data. Here, I find success feels like stillness, like breathing without effort." Isaiah's smile deepened. "That's peace, too. You're starting to sound like a local." Her gaze lifted to the horizon, where the last streaks of sunset faded. "Isaiah," she said, hesitating, "may I ask something without logic?" "Go ahead." "When you look at me, what do you see?" He leaned back, thinking. "I see someone trying real hard to understand a world that don't make sense half the time. Someone brave enough to stand in it anyway." She was quiet for a moment, her eyes shimmering faintly in the dusk. "And when I look at you," she said, "I see warmth shaped like a person." Isaiah chuckled softly, lowering the guitar. "Ain't never been called that before." "It is accurate," she said earnestly. "You emit steadiness. When you are near, the noise inside me quiets." He looked at her, really looked, at the faint glow under her skin, the subtle pulse of light near her neck, the way her eyes reflected stars before they appeared in the sky. Something unspoken passed between them. Not foreign, not strange, just real. "You ever think maybe we were both meant to end up here?" he asked. "Probability suggests otherwise," she said, then smiled, small and real. "But I prefer this outcome." For a long time neither spoke. The air cooled, wrapping them in stillness. A single moth fluttered near the porch light. Thalia reached out, fingers steady, letting it land gently on her hand. Her eyes softened as she watched it. "Such fragility," she whispered. "And yet it flies." Isaiah's voice dropped low. "That's how most of us live, fragile but still moving." She turned to him, her tone barely audible. "Then I wish to keep moving with you." He froze, heart thudding like thunder against his ribs. Her words hung between them, heavy and pure. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, but she didn't. Their hands met, her cool light mixing with his warmth until it was impossible to tell which was which. "I don't know what this means," she said, "but I want to learn." He squeezed her hand gently. "Then we'll learn together." The porch light flickered, a breeze rustling the trees like a whispered blessing. She leaned closer, resting her head lightly against his shoulder. No words passed. None were needed. The night spoke for them, full of crickets, wind, and the quiet heartbeat of something new. Isaiah closed his eyes, feeling the weight of her against him, the hum of her light echoing in rhythm with his own pulse. For the first time in years he didn't think of what he'd lost. He thought only of what had found him. Winter crept into Georgia quietly, laying silver frost across the fields that had once burned under summer sun. The mornings came slow now, each breath visible in the chill. Isaiah rose early, wrapped in his old coat, the one Lila used to tease him about. The world felt different, not empty but settled, as if time had finally learned how to move gently again. Thalia stood by the edge of the field, her breath visible though she didn't need it. Her glow had faded to a soft pulse beneath her skin, more ember than flame. "The ground sleeps," she said, voice carrying softly through the cold air. "That's what it does this time of year," Isaiah said. "Rest's part of growing." She knelt, brushing frost from the soil. Even stillness has purpose. My people could learn from that. He smiled faintly. You already are. The two worked in silence for a while, preparing the last stretch of earth for the coming season. The soil was firm but not unkind beneath their hands. Thalia handled it with reverence, as though she were tending something sacred. She had grown into the rhythm of the land, slow, deliberate, honest. When the morning sun broke through the clouds, Isaiah brought out a small wooden box. "Got something for you," he said. She tilted her head, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "A gift?" "Something like that." He opened the box and revealed a silver necklace, old but polished, the pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "It belonged to my wife," he said quietly. "Lila wore it every day." Thalia's gaze softened. "It carries memory." "Yeah," Isaiah said. "She used to say the moon reminded her that light always comes back, even when it hides." He held it out, unsure. "I think she'd want you to have it." Thalia hesitated. "It is not customary for my kind to accept objects of attachment." He smiled gently. "It ain't customary for mine to give something that matters this much either. Guess we're both breaking rules." Her fingers brushed his as she took it. "Then I will wear it with honor." When she placed the chain around her neck, the pendant reflected the sunlight in small flashes, catching against her faint glow. For a moment it looked as though both lights, human and alien, belonged to the same world. By midday they began planting again. Thalia had developed a hybrid seed, part Veliari bioflora, part human crop. "It will yield faster," she explained, "and regenerate soil naturally." Isaiah eyed the strange blue-green kernels. "You sure about this?" She smiled. "Have faith in what we've learned." He grinned. "That's my line." They planted the seeds together, their movements unspoken, familiar. Every handful of earth felt like a promise written between them. When the work was done, they stood side by side, looking over the rows. "This one's ours," Isaiah said quietly. Thalia nodded. "Not yours, not mine." "Ours." The wind shifted, carrying the smell of pine and damp soil. Isaiah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of years lift from his shoulders. "You know," he said, "when I first met you, I thought you were just some government experiment come to make my life harder." Thalia's lips curved in a small smile. "And now?" "Now I think maybe you were sent to remind me that life still grows if you let it." Her glow brightened faintly. "Then perhaps this place healed us both." He looked at her, eyes warm beneath the brim of his hat. "Maybe that's what the land's for." As the light faded, they walked back toward the farmhouse, boots crunching over frost. Thalia touched the pendant gently, feeling its weight against her chest. "Isaiah," she said softly, "does memory ever stop hurting?" He shook his head. "No. But one day, it stops feeling like loss and starts feeling like legacy." She absorbed his words in silence, the air between them filled with quiet understanding. Behind them, the soil rested beneath its thin frost, holding the seeds they'd planted together, new life waiting beneath old roots. Isaiah turned once more to look at the fields. "Spring'll come soon," he said. "When it does, we'll see what we've made." Thalia followed his gaze, her voice barely above a whisper. "We already see it." The last of the sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the land like blessing, and in that fragile glow, where human hands met alien light, the future no longer seemed foreign. It seemed alive. Spring returned to Georgia in a slow exhale. The frost melted, the soil softened, and the air filled again with the hum of life. Isaiah stood at the edge of his field one morning, boots half buried in damp earth, watching the first green shoots break through. Rows upon rows of small blue-green leaves shimmered under the early light. Thalia's hybrid crop, alive and strong. He knelt down, running his fingers over the young plants. "Would you look at that?" he murmured, smiling. "Didn't think I'd see something like this in my lifetime." Behind him, Thalia approached, her glow bright and calm. The crescent pendant around her neck caught the sunlight, flashing silver and pale blue. "They grow fast," she said, kneeling beside him. "Faster than expected. Your soil accepted them." Isaiah chuckled. Told you this land don't turn away good hands. Thalia looked at him, her voice soft. It accepted both of ours. For a while they worked in quiet harmony, checking the plants, marking their growth. A warm wind rustled the stalks, and somewhere in the distance church bells rang faintly across the hills. Isaiah straightened, wiping his palms on his jeans. You know, he said, this place feels different now, like it's got a new rhythm. It does, she replied. We changed it, together. He turned to her, eyes reflecting the morning light. You ever think about going back? To your world, I mean. Thalia hesitated, her gaze drifting toward the horizon. I was sent here to learn, she said slowly. But what I found was more than knowledge. I found belonging. Isaiah smiled. Then I guess you already know. You're welcome to stay as long as you want. Her glow flickered slightly, like sunlight through water. And if I stay, will you still teach me? He laughed softly. Teach you? Girl, you've been teaching me since the day you landed. A quiet warmth passed between them, something wordless, rooted, unshakable. The field stretched before them like a promise fulfilled. Later that afternoon, Mama Rosa arrived, her steps slow but her smile wide. Lord, look at this field, she said, clapping her hands. Never seen nothing like it. Colors like the heavens came down to bless your soil. Isaiah grinned. Guess the Lord just wanted some company out here. Mama Rosa turned to Thalia, taking her hands gently. You did something mighty special here, child. The land remembers kindness. Thalia's voice trembled slightly. Then may it remember us both. The older woman nodded. Oh, it will. The ground don't forget love. As evening settled, the three of them sat on the porch watching the sunset bleed gold and crimson across the fields. Romy stopped by too, bringing peach cobbler and laughter that filled the air. The farm glowed under the last light. Human and alien effort intertwined, the land singing quietly in gratitude. When the others left, Isaiah and Thalia remained on the porch. Fireflies began to rise from the grass, tiny stars blinking against the dusk. She leaned against the railing, her voice barely above the whisper of wind. Isaiah, do you ever wonder if connection is the purpose of all life? He thought for a moment. Yeah, he said. Maybe it's not just about surviving or growing. Maybe it's about reaching out even when it scares you. 'Cause that's how things change. She nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the horizon. Then we have both changed. He reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining with easy familiarity. Her light pulsed softly against his skin. Yeah, he said quietly. We sure have. The night grew still around them, carrying the scent of tilled soil and new beginnings. The crops swayed gently in the breeze, reflecting a shimmer of two worlds stitched together by trust, patience, and touch. Thalia turned to him, smiling. You once said your people plant prayers in the ground. What did you plant this time? Isaiah looked out over the fields, his expression tender and proud. Hope, he said, and maybe a little love. She rested her head against his shoulder, her voice low. Then it will bloom beautifully. He chuckled. There ain't no doubt about that. The stars began to pierce the deepening sky, bright and endless. The world seemed wide again, yet small enough to hold between two hands. As her glow dimmed into the rhythm of night, Thalia whispered, He taught me the language of roots, of hands, of soul. Isaiah smiled, whispering back, and she taught me that some things don't need explaining. They just need feeling. The porch light flickered, the crickets sang louder, and the world turned quietly toward tomorrow. If you've been walking this journey with us, don't forget to subscribe and stay close. There's another story waiting just ahead, about a woman sent to spy on Earth's emotions and what happened when she fell for a human. You won't want to miss it.